look at our agenda. Basically, we're going to start with a little brief intro about Big Bang. Then we'll dive into demand planning. So, what is it? Who needs it? How does it improve your business? The types, etc. After covering that, we will talk about how Big Bang can help your business, and we will finish off by answering the poll questions and answering all your Q&A and doing a little Q&A session. Sorry. So throughout the webinar, feel free to add your questions in the Q&A Zoom chat. Your lovely presenters today will be Bill Jones. He's our US account manager. He has several years of experience in cloud consulting. Then we have Younes Tawil. He's a consultant at Big Bang. He has a lot of experience with integration and implementation projects, especially involving demand planning. And finally, we have Nicolas Pellerin, who is a project manager at Big Bang, and he has a vast experience in several industries, including pharmaceuticals, where he acquired notable supply chain experience. So sit back, grab a coffee, and we are ready to start. Bill can start us off.
Thanks, Mesa. Hi, everybody, and thank you for attending today's webinar on demand planning. Before we really dive into demand planning proper, I'd like to let you know a little bit about who we are at Big Bang. Here at Big Bang, we're a global services company specializing in best-of-breed cloud solutions across the enterprise. We're a one-stop shop offering multiple solutions in each category, so we can really focus on the needs of your business and present you with the best match solution for your situation. We only offer multi-tenant cloud solutions that have a high degree of, or a higher degree of safety, security, and scalability than on-premise and hybrid cloud solutions. Our solutions are available anytime, anywhere, and on any device, all without additional costs. Next slide, Mason. Since 2013, we've delivered just about 200 implementations and over 450 optimization projects to our 400 customers. Our services run the full spectrum from implementation and customization to support, training, and even good old-fashioned business systems advice. Next two, thank you. So what is demand planning, right? Figured we would sort of frame this with a little definition. You know, demand planning really boils down to being the process of forecasting the demand for a product or service so it can be produced and or delivered more efficiently. And this consists of gathering and analyzing a lot of data that can be used to accurately predict that demand. So to look more at how this impacts businesses, I'm going to now turn this over to my colleague, Nick Pellerin.
Thanks. Thanks, Bill. So who needs demand planning? Well, pretty much anyone that has a pick, pack, and ship process, or anyone that doesn't have a crystal ball, because that's the game, pretty much. They're trying to predict what you don't know. So why would you need demand planning? Well, most of the time, people need demand planning to improve either the cash flow, service level, reduce the impact on the workforce when they're trying to plan it, and the warehouse capacity. Those are normally the most critical aspect. And accordingly to that, normally you will tailor the right solution for according to your budget, the complexity also of your supply chain, and the different specific needs you might have accordingly to your type of business. So everybody has their governmental rule that can impact. So that's pretty much who needs demand planning. So pretty much everyone. So how does demand planning can improve your business? So demand planning can improve your business by a multiple way. So all of those factors are kind of in relation to each other. None of them are really independent. So they all trying to find a perfect balance in your demand planning to be able to find that sweet spot under all those different aspects. So if we start by cash flow, this is normally where it always starts with the finance department, where they're going to say, you are holding as the operation group too much money and we are stuck. We need money, a little bit more liquidity. So why would you be in need of cash flow? Well, if you are not planning accordingly, the right demand planning and the right supply plan, well, you might have excessive inventory, and having excessive inventory is sleeping money. There is nothing worse than having a buyer purchasing for a couple of years of inventory when normally you should need just a couple of months. And you have then to find a way to be able to release that money. So normally you take another loss by trying to discount it or whatsoever. So what does it do also by having limited cash flow? It does not just affect the operation itself and the finance department, also limit your capacity sometimes for growth. So it limits your capacity to be able to bring new line of SKU, to easily acquire opportunity in the market. So if you are seeing an opportunity where you can easily drop a huge amount of inventory and be able to sell it, if you don't have the money to back it up, then you might be slowed down because you need to go get extra funds from the bank. So those are normally what will impact on your cash flow. So that's pretty much on that side. Regarding the service level. So service level normally is going to be drive a little bit more with your customer service and a little bit more with your sales department, where they're going to be complaining because it was inaccurate on the planning. So you might have missed sales, or you might have had back order, and you don't know when you might be able to supply it if you have long lead time in some situation. So the service level, how can it impact more in detail? Well, if you control your supply chain correctly with your demand planning and your supply plan, then you're going to be able to plan your promotion. You're going to be able to plan your seasonality and the market fluctuation that could come out of any specific reason. Your competitor burns down, and now you have a full market opportunity that is opening up in front of you. So if you do not have a good demand planning for that and try to analyze how you can turn things around, therefore you might be missing on it. But again, this is where it comes in a sweet balance, because if you are not planning accordingly, you might actually be getting too much things. So yes, you might increase your sales level, but you might be completely jamming your cash flow. So this is where the sweet balance is, where the demand planning tool is going to be able to help you. So one of the other thing is service level, also depending the business you're in. So as Mesa mentioned, I was in the pharma business, and the pharma business, the service level was super important. We could lose contract when we were passing from 99.7% of service level. If I'm losing 0.1%, I was losing my contract. So it's super dependent. So that pretty much covers it for the service level. So now if we move to the workforce planning. So normally if you have a pick, pack, and ship company, you might not have your own distribution network. You might be using a 3PL, but both system will be impacted if you do not plan accordingly. Because if you're buying too much things, well, you're going to be pushing a lot of inventory. It's going to create bottleneck on the receiving side and on the put away side. So normally you're going to have either a big push. You might need to hire external workforce to be able to help you get through it. And otherwise over time, so you're getting pretty much a dominoes effect on that side. And also on the other side, if you do not plan accordingly what you're expecting to be selling, you might not be able to actually ship everything you need in the right amount of time. Then you might have quality issue, you might have complaints from customer. So there's a lot of impact on that side. And also same thing as when you're trying to receive, you might be missing actually employee to be able to pick, pack, and ship all of that. And if you're doing a 3PL model, well, they might try to charge you extra cost because you're not telling them ahead of time what's coming. So this is why demand planning again are important. So all of that right now is all connected. If you're pushing a little bit to get more on one, you might be affected on the other one. So this is where you're trying to find a sweet balance. And last one, and maybe not the least, but those are the four more common ones that are impacting on business, is the warehouse capacity. If you are trying to be too cautious with your service level, well, what might happen is you might have excess inventory. And again, excessive inventory is going to impact your cash flow. You might have better service level, but now your warehouse is full. So what's going to happen? Well, you're going to be a shortage of space. And if you're on a 3PL model, well, you're going to have maybe extra cost because you're covering more space than you actually would necessarily need. So all of that is costing you. So everybody knows that real estate is getting more and more expensive, except some specific place on the world. But so every time you need more space, it's implying more costs. If you are owning, for example, your warehouse and your own supply chain, well, the excessive inventory might trigger the need to move to a new location. By having to move to a new location, well, you're gonna have cost, you're gonna have potential impact on your operation, on actually being able to serve the customer in the right amount of time. So it's launching a domino effect just because you didn't plan accordingly your inventory, and you are eating all the capacity and the planification for the incoming years when you're trying to do your warehouse design. So this is where it has a big impact. So if we go in a little bit, that's for a traditional pick, pack, and ship business. If you go into more advanced, what is getting more and more trendy, because distribution center are starting to be in need of workforce to be able to work in a lot of different city. They were just running out. So if you take, for example, a city like Columbus, the employment rate is super low. If you go check, the Amazon, the Walmart over there are pretty much sucking in all the workforce available. So what people are doing, they're going towards automatization. If you go towards automatization, if you do not have a good demand planning, good luck trying to go get the return on investment that was expected. Those machines are sensitive a lot. If we're talking about an OSR, an A-frame, maybe a carousel, things like that, they will need perfect planification. You cannot be jamming excessive inventory in there. If you do, you will have extra labor costs to be trying to balance it out and trying to adjust everything. So therefore, the technical advanced are not necessarily going to bring all the right return just because of the demand planning. It seems simple, but all of that have a critical impact. And personally, I've lived through it. We did huge automatization project, and the demand planning was not on top of the game, and therefore we had to do a lot of re-engineering of our process to be able to adapt. So it is a real scenario, and it costs you at the end of the day. So those are pretty much the aspect that normally comes the most often regarding demand planning, what it would impact. It doesn't mean it's limited to only this, but it is a big part of it. If there's more problem or potential for improvement that you have with demand planning that you would like to discuss, we can for sure talk about it during the Q&A. For now, we'll transfer it to my colleague Younes. He is going to go a little bit more into technical detail for the demand planning and the supply plan.
Thank you, Nick. How are you guys? So as my colleague mentioned, he explained why do you need demand planning for your business. For my part, I'm going to dive in explaining what different types of demand planning there is, and how they differ and what are they. So there's two major types: time phase and reorder point. There is many more, but for the purpose of this, we're going to dive into these two. For time phase, is something called linear regression. It's fairly simple. It's usually for businesses who have steady growth. All it does, it takes your previous demand, projects it to the future, and just assigns a certain growth. You assign a certain growth rate to it. So let's say you have a growth of 1% per month. It's going to get previous demand allocated for the future with 1% growth per month. As well, now talking about moving average is a bit different. It does still take your previous demand, but it just averages it out and as well project it down the line. So you're gonna have the same projection for the future for every month or every week, depending how you're doing your demand planning. Seasonal is self-explanatory. What it does, it takes the season of the previous year and it projects on that. So for example, ice cream sells mostly in summer. So for this summer, for example, if you're doing demand planning for ice cream, you're gonna go look into the previous summer and you're gonna like, yes, that's my sales for the previous summer. That's what I'm gonna project for this summer, and that's how you achieve your forecast. Sales forecast is a bit different. How it differs is the previous three, they use demand. So it takes your previous demand and projects on that. Your sales forecast, it takes your actual sales in the system, your future sales, and calculates how much you need how much you're planning to sell, and you can as well allocate a growth rate to it, or any information you want to adjust to that, and then that's how you project your demand on that. Reorder point is quite different from time phase. Time phase uses always historical data or future data to predict your demand. Reorder point it varies in a simple way, is that at this point of time, what do I need to be able to satisfy the sales in my system? So it does not really does any growth or any actual forecasting. It just says, I have X amount of sales, I need X amount of orders to satisfy them. It's very good for like drop shipping and stuff like that. So you don't, like, once you get the order, then you do the purchase, but it's not really used for, it depends on the type of business actually. So it's not always used. And many more. The reason is there's not one way of doing demand planning. There's not, even for the same item, for the same SKU, maybe you want to look at different types of demand planning to better predict for that item. And as well as a lot of clients, they have their own specific way to do demand planning that's been working for them for the past like 5-6 years. So that's why we do a lot of customization for demand planning as well. So what is a successful demand plan? Once more. Okay. So product life cycle. So it's very important to understand the life cycle of your products. As prior, like ice cream is seasonal, you have to understand that to be able to proper demand planning on it, as well as I mentioned before, for the same SKU, it could be different. You can use different demand plans types. For example, ice cream, maybe in the beginning of the summer, you want to use seasonal just to know what you've sold last year. But midsummer, you've seen they have a lot of growth in your sales. So maybe you want to go with linear for the rest of the summer, just because this summer reflects the projection at the end of the summer better. So there, where you can start comparing different demand plans, and you see what's better for your business and what's more accurate for you. But yeah, sales patterns. So a lot of times, items are dependent on each other. So maybe you want to start, especially if you're putting new items in the system, new SKUs you're introducing to the market. It's really hard. You cannot do any demand planning on that. You can only project on sales. And especially if it's a new item, it's really hard to project your sales. So maybe you want to start linking items together, saying this item is similar to an X item I have in my system. So you'll be able to link them together and project your demand plan on that. A lot of systems offer them out of the box, some don't, but it's an interesting thing to do. Next, marketing campaigns. So far we've talked about purchases and sales, and that's how you do demand planning. But another interesting thing is marketing campaigns, because sometimes you know you're going to invest X amount of money in your campaign, and it's going to generate X amount of sales. And once these sales comes in, you want to have the product already there in your inventory to satisfy the demand. So it's always interesting to see these ratios. How much do I invest in my marketing and how much in return I get? And based on that, you'll be able to better project your demand. Next. Users. So in the end, demand planning is just a tool, nothing more, right? It's not an exact science. It's a tool that operations we use just to better predict our demand, what we need in inventory. So you always need a user to understand your products, who understands your sales patterns, who understands marketing campaigns, and be able to put all that together and says, yes, the demand planning the system is generating is accurate, is what I need, or maybe I need to adjust to accommodate for certain changes. Or as well, maybe he has as well to be aware of like some certain external factors that you cannot take into account in demand planning, such as whether you just acquired a different company. Like there's a lot of factors like users should be aware of, and should not just take demand planning as exact science, and they should be able to manipulate it to a certain extent, right? Next. So now that we've talked about what is a good demand plan and what the different types are, we have the right data in the system saying, yes, that's the demand I need. And then we're gonna move forward to something called a supply plan. So I have my demand plan. Now I wanna see what I need to order and how I order it to satisfy this demand I have. So first of all, we're gonna be talking about lead time. So what lead time is basically the moment you place your work order or purchase order in your system, till you get the inventory in the warehouse. So that time between placing the order and getting the inventory is called lead time. Lead time can consist of many things like manufacturing time, shipping time, like as depending on the process of your business. But in the end, just the time from the placing the order till getting it in inventory. And what's interesting about this, all the systems allow you to calculate it automatically. So it takes into account previous purchase orders, previous work orders, and the time you receive them in your system. And depending on the vendor and the item, it can say like for this X vendor and X item, it takes me 14 days from placing an order to receiving it in my warehouse. And that as well will condense, you'll have able to generate a better demand and a better supply plan with that. Next. Safety stock levels. This is very important because, as I mentioned before, demand planning is not an exact science. So you're forecasting as close as possible to the reality, but it never is. So you want to always have a certain safety stock in your inventory. You want to have a certain amount in the inventory to accommodate for sales and fluctuation in sales. And there's a very important thing as well. Certain systems, they do it. Like you can do it manually, say I want 1,000 units of that item in my inventory at all time, or you can have it as well automatic. And how it works when it's automatic is usually based on the forecast of sales you have in your system. You say like, I want to satisfy the next 5 weeks of sales in my system. And every time you're placing purchase order or work order, you want to make sure that at that point you have enough safety. You order enough to satisfy the next 5 weeks of sale and not just that sale, but you need to satisfy. Next two actually. So now that we know what you need to order, this is more for placing orders, something called reorder multiple. So certain vendors don't allow you, they allow you only to order a certain multiple. So for example, I'm only allowed to order a multiple of 100, so 100, 200, 300. This is a good information to have in your system, just facilitates the process of supply plan, so to generate automatically your orders rather than entering them manually in the system, as well as minimum order quantity. This is good for two reasons. First, some vendors don't allow you to order less than a minimum quantities, for example, like minimum 1,000 units. So I have to order that, even though I just need 500 for now. And the other reason is some vendors offer discounts. So if you order 100, you don't get a discount to the regular price. But if you order 1,000, then you get 10% discount. And maybe you want to always make sure you always get that discount, right? So you want to always make sure you order 1,000 rather than 10. And it depends, again, you can put certain logic around it, see what's better suits your business. And now that we've talked about demand and supply plan, I'm gonna give it to Bill for you to explain how Big Bang ERP can help you with all of that.
Thank you, Yunus. Go ahead, next slide, Misa. Yeah, so, for those of you that already have NetSuite, Rootstock, or Financial Force, Big Bang can help you leverage that native functionality as well as ecosystem third-party solutions for those. And in most cases, we can help you build out the last yard customizations necessary to tailor your demand planning solution to your needs, as well as we're here for the long-term support and training options on those systems. If you're not currently using one of our solution partners, Big Bang's business advisory team can help you sift through the different options available to you in the market and find a best fit for your business. With that, let's go ahead and discuss the answers from the survey today, and then perhaps some Q&A. Next slide, Misa. So currently using demand planning, only a third of our respondents are currently using demand planning. Managing inventory levels at the warehouse, funny enough, all of our respondents are using some level of ERP to do that. The largest pain point that we found, this was kind of mixed. We found a pretty good split between service level, workforce planning, and then the all-inclusive other category. And lastly, whether or not people on the line are planning to leverage demand planning in the next year. One of you is already leveraging it for your solution, which is great. And then there's a couple, most everybody else is not using it. So only one is using it so far. Nobody else is using it at this time, and not doing so in the next 12 months. So let's turn it over to Q&A. For any questions that you have, go ahead and put that into the chat function.
Okay, so I see there's one question here that we will try our best to answer. So one of our attendees is asking if we are able to show a NetSuite demand planning, and they were expecting a demo.
Okay, so regarding the demo, so we didn't plan to book it one because there was so many different aspects, and for now, really the goal was to look more into the general aspect of the demand planning because there is not one solution. We have worked with it, but there is different need for different people, and normally we would always try to make sure that we are selecting the right tool for them. But if you do want a demo, for sure we can book a specific one-on-one demo to make sure we go over what are the functionality and make sure that it actually could be a match, because there is some limitation in every system, and it's important to make sure you understand those before trying to go forward and trying to purchase a module, for example, the demand planning NetSuite. So don't hesitate to let us know who it was so that we can do that.
Okay, and we also see another question here. What demand planning works with QuickBooks that you support?
Yeah, and I'll take that one, Mesa. Off the top of my head, I don't know. That's a case where we would certainly look to involve our business systems advisory, and we can help find one, get a couple choices for your business to find the one that's going to work best for you.
Okay, so I don't see other questions. If there's anything, please write it now. Okay, so there's one that came up. So if I am looking to invest in demand planning, what is my timeline?
So timeline-wise, normally it takes a couple of days just to assess, making sure what is your current process with you, mapping what you have if it is not already done, leveraging, making sure we assess your requirements. So it's normally just a business review process quickly that can take 1 or 2 days, normally maximum, to cover this. Afterwards, we pretty much make sure that we do the right tool selection together. So this might take 1 to 3 weeks, depends how quickly it goes. And accordingly, depending the tool that you're going to be using and how far you're going to go with it, then we can talk normally from maybe 4 to 6 weeks to make sure that we're working together with you and that we are aligning. And those are really just high-level estimation. So you could say, let's say, up to like a month and a half and 2 months maybe to go through the process. It always depends the complexity that you have and how well-rounded your process are, or if they're raw. So that's pretty much normally.
And if I can add, it's always better to start the process as early as possible. You want to have it ready and tested before your season becomes your high season of the year. So in the low season, you should have it ready, tested, you tried it for a couple of months, make sure it works, it reflects your business, and then be ready for the actual your season, like Christmas or whenever there's a high demand for your business.
Yeah, it's not the moment to try to do it during the peak of the season.
You should never do it during.
right, guys, that wraps it up. So thank you very much, all of you, for joining us for our first intro to demand planning webinar. And just so you know, if you want to follow up on this and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach us. You have our phone number there. We will be very happy to give you a demo and talk one-on-one. And just know that we will be sending you an email as a follow-up with a recording of this webinar. So thank you all very much, and we wish you a pleasant day.